Here's a recording made from a payphone hooked up to the relatively new electronic switch in Warwick, New York. This switch was installed in December 1975. It acts as the long-distance tandem for this sector, the Warwick Valley Telephone Company, a true independent that has a few exchanges in New York and New Jersey. In programs 4 and 5 of this series, we played around with this switch from the long-distance network and its companion, the North Electric crossbar system that is used for operator services, TSD. So we have these two switches in Warwick, and we're going to hear both of them here, this time dialing from a payphone whose dial tone is coming from this Stromberg Carlson electronic switch. I'm going to pick up the phone, get a dial tone and just dial a 2, sit there and see what happens. Wow, the way that dial tone came on, very fast. That sounds like an ESC. Now we know this is a Stromberg Carlson switch, but they called it a PL1. Dial tone, however, suggests that it's an ESC. Anyway, I've dialed a digit, and what it's going to do next is a little bit loud, so I'm going to turn down the volume for you.
Hang up and call again. Your telephone has been left off hook. Please check any extension phones or hang up and call again.
Turn down the volume again for the receiver off hook tone. That is typical ESC. It's the same as my phone trips to Chancellor, Virginia, Quarryville, Pennsylvania, and Morgantown, Pennsylvania, the places that I've seen an ESC before. Now, one characteristic of the ESCs is the MFs sound very strange. You usually hear only one of the two tones. So let's dial something that might MF out. I'm going to dial 1 plus 212-555-1212 for directory assistance in New York City, of course, and hopefully this will MF something to the TSD, which is the NX1 switch that handles the operator services. On this next call, because I'm dialing a lot of digits, you'll notice that my rotary dial is making some clanging noises, indicating that this payphone is old-fashioned. It's an old 3-slot coin phone with relays in it, and every time the dial comes back to rest, it makes kind of a clang, which a sensor in the phone picks up. That's the same transducer that would pick up the sound of coins hitting gongs when they go into the phone. However, since the phones here are post-pay, we won't be depositing any coins. Is this it? Is this all it's going to do? We've clearly gone into the TSD, the operator services NX1 switch, but this is all it's doing. And those MFs were normal. So the MFs we just heard the electronic switch making are not like a typical ESC. So the dial tone is, but the MFs aren't. Let's hang up. Now let's hear what it actually sent, because there is a normal protocol for using TSD. It's called the NT500 protocol, and the first thing you do is you send key pulse plus the 7 or 10-digit number that's being called. So it should be key pulse 212-555-1212. 1212. Let's see what it sent. It sent key pulse plus 2 and then 212-555-1212. That's 11 digits where there normally would be 10. And why it doesn't go through, I can't explain, because they ought to be able to do it. They have a TSD, which means they handle 0 plus dialing, collect calls and stuff where the customer dials 0 plus the phone number. And usually when you can do that, long distance calls from payphones go through too. Now the next thing that's supposed to happen is the TSD flashes, which it does, and then you'll send key pulse plus a 2-digit code from a coin phone, usually 53, and then the 7-digit number of the coin phone, which will be 986 something, because these are 986 numbers in Warwick, and then a regular start. So key pulse, 53, 7 digits, regular start. Let's see what it does. No. Actually, it's key pulse plus 33 instead of 53, then the 7-digit number, and then, you know what? That's not a normal start tone. That's code 11. 700 hertz plus 1700 hertz. It's used in operator-handled calls, but not usually to an NX1 switch. The NT500 protocol does not use weird starts. They don't have to because they've got that special code at the beginning of the number, those 2 digits, and that provides 100 different possibilities. You don't have to use funny starts with this protocol, but here they're using a code 11. Okay, that settles it. This is a weird phone company. But I guess you knew that from some of the funny things that we heard from Long Island playing with these 2 switches. And of course, some of the local calling area sounds pretty weird, in a good way.
This is a recording from Pine Island, New York. Your number cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the number or code you are dialing, and dial again or ask your operator for assistance. Thank you. This is a recording from Pine Island, New York. Your number cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the number or code you are dialing, and dial again or ask your operator for assistance. Thank you.
This is cool carrier noise, and the way this went through was very typical for an ESC. After I dialed the 3rd digit of the office code, it picked the trunk, and then it repeated the last 4 digits right after I dialed each one and cut through. And I just flashed my hook trying to hang up, and I'm on lockout. And this is not typical for an ESC. The ESCs I've seen all have lockout, but it doesn't usually sound like this. And of course that dial tone is typical ESC. So what's going on here? They didn't call it an ESC, they called it a PL1. We come up here, we find out that unlike the ESCs I've seen in Pennsylvania, it has normal sounding MFs, it has a different sounding lockout, and based on what I read fairly recently, I mean like maybe 2014, I think I understand what's happening here. The ESC design was updated several times. And originally, it was not a stored program control switch in that you couldn't really reprogram the generic software that ran it. I was surprised to read that on the internet, but I did. What I think they did was, in the later 70s, they started installing ESCs that were programmable or reprogrammable. And that's why it was called a PL1. And I think that's what this is. This is a revised, improved, I don't know what the word is, but enhanced ESC. And that's why it has a few differences in the way it sounds from the other ones I've seen. I recall Joe and Grecia in the 80s mentioning this as well, that they had several different versions of it, and this was one of the newer ones. He also, by the way, memorized exactly what you hear from one of the older ESCs for each MF tone. Because the older ESCs, you would only hear one of the two tones for each MF being sent, and he had that memorized as to what you hear for each digit. Not applicable here since you hear both tones. Hey, don't send code 11 to an NX1. What's the matter with you? Anyway, let's see if they have the 11X codes here. Codes like 113 for directory assistance. I'll dial 11 and see what happens.
This is a recording. We cannot complete your call as dialed. Please consult your directory or dial 411 for directory assistance. This is a recording. We cannot complete your call as dialed. Please consult your directory or dial 411 for directory assistance. This is a...
Okay, let's try 1 plus 0.
This is a recording. We cannot complete your call as dialed. Please consult your directory or dial 411 for directory assistance. This is a recording. We cannot complete your...
Didn't hang up long enough. I'm on lockout. And dialing a 3 on lockout made it go back to dial tone, but very quickly, so that by the time the dial unwound, the dial tone was already on. So we didn't hear it clicking on, like this. All right, let's try dialing 0, and I'm going to tell you in advance what this is going to do. The ESC from which I'm dialing will first wait to see if I'm dialing another digit. When I don't, it will then pick up a trunk to the TSD, which will flash, and then the ESC will send key pulse 20 start. That 2 in front of everything sent to the TSD is apparently something they do here. I don't know why. At that point, the TSD will make those famous NX1 billing clicks. But those clicks will be attenuated because the device that gives us dial tone, receives digits, and MFs out will still be on the line. So that register sender or receiver sender, whatever it's called in an ESC, is going to attenuate the sound of the billing clicks. And then the TSD flashes again. The ESC sends key pulse 33, my 7-digit number, and a code 11. Now here's the whole thing.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
You know, this TSD switch is striking me more and more as, yes, it was probably bought used. What on earth is going wrong? I tried dialing 1 plus 212 directory assistance, and an operator didn't come on. Now I just tried dialing 0, and it sounded like it was going to an operator. Let's try New York City directory assistance again. There. That's where an operator should have come on, but apparently not. Going to try dialing a few digits on this. All right, I flashed a little longer, and now I'm on lockout, and tried 00 to maybe get to the operator faster, but...
This is a recording. We cannot complete your call as dialed. Please consult your for directory assistance.
Okay, I flashed on the recording and went to lockout. And prior to that, I tried dialing a 0 over the recording, and it didn't disconnect me. For what it's worth, we now know that about ESCs, or at least this one. Let's see if we can actually get the operator. I'll try dialing 0 by itself again.
Operator?
Yeah, could you get me 212-634-9970?
The answer is 95.
95 when the answer, thank you.
Nice, busy.
Thank you, bye-bye.
This thing again. Apparently this is where the TSD just leaves you at the end of a call, or if it's malfunctioning and not giving you a call in the first place. A quick flash on this will not disconnect, but a slightly longer one will. Alright, let's try dialing the office code for Pine Island. That's a step we heard the recording from earlier. I'm about to dial the third digit. You'll hear immediately after the third digit a significant but not especially loud tick of the trunk being connected. There. Now we're on the trunk, but we're still hearing it via the register sender or receiver sender or whatever it's called in the ESC. I'm going to dial the vacant 1000 group and then 2 more digits. You'll hear the ESC dialing each of these digits onto the trunk, and then we'll just stop and listen. The ESC, as usual, gave us a very generous 33 seconds to dial the last digit. During that whole time, we could hear the intercept recording and its associated ring, but eventually it had to time us out, so it gave us the local reorder, which does not disconnect if you dial on it. I have found out for what that's worth. Now here's a call to a vacant level in Florida, New York, another one of the step tributaries of the Warwick Valley Telephone Company. If you listen carefully, before I'm finished dialing, you'll hear bits of the ring and recording coming through the register or receiver or whatever it's called in this ESC.
Recording from Florida, New York. The number you are calling cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the code or number and try your call again. This is recording. This is recording. York. The number you are calling cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the code or number and try your call again. Thank you. This is a recording from Florida, New York. The number you are calling cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the code or number and try your call again. Thank you. This is a recording from Florida, New York.
The next call, I think, is to Vernon, New Jersey, 764. We're going to reach a number that is a test line at the phone company. It has a 1 kilohertz tone that clicks off and on approximately every 10 seconds, just like a standard loop around in the Bell system. This post-pay coin phone apparently shorts the mouthpiece and the earpiece when a local call answers with no dime.
I don't think the earpiece lets any sound through, actually.
Okay, I didn't hang up long enough, so I'm here on lockout again. The next call is to Upper Greenwood Lake, New Jersey, another Warwick Valley Telephone Company step. The trunks from here to there are either N1 family carrier or a really cool sounding independent similar type.
This is a recording from Upper Greenwood Lake, New Jersey. The number you have... This is a recording from Upper Greenwood Lake, New Jersey. The number you have dialed is not in service. Please dial again or ask your operator for assistance. Thank you. This is a recording from Upper...
As you may know from other tapes, when I flash, the recording goes back to the ring. So whenever you hear the recording going back to the ring that normally precedes it, I flashed. And by the way, the ESC is very nice to let us flash through onto the local network. Do you know that in the Bell system, none of the switches do that except step? Panel, number 1, number 5 crossbar, and number 1 ESS don't do it, but the ESC does. The phone freaks do appreciate that. Okay, let's do that again and try to get a connection that doesn't squeak so much.
This is a recording from Upper Greenwood Lake, New Jersey. The number you have dialed is not in service. Please dial again or ask your operator for assistance. Thank you. This is a recording from Upper Greenwood Lake, New Jersey. The number you have dialed is not in service. Please dial again or ask your operator for assistance. Thank you.
That sounded so cool. Wow, I'm sorry we didn't make more calls to the tributaries. Ben and I were thinking that this was an electronic switch and so it, barely deserves being recorded. Anyway, speaking of the electronic switch from which we are calling, let's find out how much time it gives if you make a local call and the party answers and then hangs up on you before it disconnects you. And when it does, what does it do? Does it give you a reorder? Do you go back to dial tone? Let's find out. We'll call an actual subscriber in Upper Greenwood Lake, let him answer. We won't hear the hello very loudly because this post-pay phone cuts the earpiece out. But we'll let him hang up and then we'll stay on the line and see how long we can sit there. All right, he was off hook for over 5 seconds, so that's enough to register as a completed call. What do you want to bet it gives us 33 seconds to hold his line? We'll see. While we're waiting, let me mention that the next call is to Vernon, New Jersey, 764. We called a test number there earlier, but we didn't get a recording of the ringtone, which is it's kind of like this one. It just has a different warble rate. And the carrier is not N1-ish like this is. But anyway, that's the next call, a ringing number in Vernon, New Jersey. And of course, the New Jersey tribs are dialed 7 digits, the same as the New York ones. Oh, did you hear that? The carrier rings along with the little sounds that Ben and I make. Oh my, we're holding his line for over a minute. That is not what I expected. Okay, Vernon. All right, now let's dial our own number and see what happens.
Party on your line, please restore your handset and wait a short interval for the call party to answer. If you are dialing another party on your line, please restore your handset and wait a short interval for the call party to answer. If you are dialing...
Whoa, where does that come from? Well, it comes from the old step equipment in the Warwick building, that's where. That's not exactly standard issue on an ESC, I'm sure. And by the way, the intercept recordings in this Warwick switch are blastingly loud. I'm having to turn them down, and they may still be hurting your ears. Sorry about that. Here's a vacant number in Warwick 986.
You have dialed a non-working number. Please consult your directory or dial 411 for directory assistance. You have dialed a non-working number. Please consult your directory or dial 411 for directory assistance.
Okay, so let's actually call 411 for directory assistance.
Information.
Oh, got you by mistake. I'm sorry.
I should have had Ben do that one. He asks for a listing. The way that went through was very straightforward. The ESC just picked up a trunk to the TSD and sent 411, and then the TSD did a very typical NX1 dump into a trunk sound, and it was ringing. The ring was extremely loud, so much that it distorted my tape recorder. I'm going to try dialing my own area code, 914, followed by 121, the network code for inward operator. So here's 1-914-121-1111 to see what it does. Local reorder tone from the ESC. All right, let's try 1 plus 914, my own area code, plus a Warwick 986 number. See what happens. Local reorder on that too. Let's try dialing 1 plus a Warwick 986 number. You're not supposed to. Let's see what it does. Okay, it went to TSD the normal way, and I think it might have gone through or done something had TSD not been messing up. It's really hard to tell because TSD fails so often here. In fact, on our next stop, which is Florida, New York, one of the steps of Warwick Valley Telephone Company, the TSD continues to mess up. So this is kind of inconclusive. The only thing we know is that the ESC did send it to TSD correctly. That was Ben and I talking about how the TSD doesn't work. Now the next one is a sticky wicket. I'm going to dial 1 plus 764. 764 is one of the local codes here, but it's in New Jersey, area 201. If you dial 1 plus 764, then you mean the 914 area 764, which is PO4 in Pound Ridge. So this should go through, even though what I'm thinking, Vernon, New Jersey, is not what I'm actually dialing. This should go through to Pound Ridge. We'll see what it does. Haha, the TSD has screwed up two ways. First, it ended up with just this again. But it didn't make any billing clicks, and it ought to, because Pound Ridge is a long-distance call. So maybe the fact that 764 is local for Vernon, New Jersey, makes it screw up on 764 for Pound Ridge, New York. But when it does this, you can't ever really be sure.
What's the code that doesn't begin with 1 and 0 that would be unusual?
Oh, I don't know. You could dial 1 plus 958 and 4 digits. In the local network, it's often a test code. In the toll network, it rings the switch room in a tandem. So let's see what it does, but I'll tell you in advance, this time the TSD makes the billing clicks in between the two MF sequences.
One moment for your call, please. What number are you calling, please?
958111.
What area code?
914. Oh, operator, I'm going to have to call later.
All right.
Bye-bye.
I should have stayed on the line to see what the operator would end up saying. I think she didn't let me hear the call going through because there were no MFs, and normally for a call out you do hear the ESC MFing out. I think where that was going was White Plains Tandem 2,
9141.
which does have city ring, unlike New York Telephone's White Plains Tandems, which are in another building. One of them rings like this, and the other like this. There's one more call dialed from the Warwick ESC, 1-212-660-4217. It's a vacant code in New York City, so we should get a borough tandem recording.
It's 95 when they answer.
We're sorry, but we have a problem in completing your call as dialed. Please check the number.
Just a moment.
Testing, operator. Let the recording play.
We're sorry, but we have a problem in completing your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator to help you. This is a recording.
2129.
We're sorry, but we have a
Now that is strange. We were able to hang up on the operator quickly. I would think that with her on the line, we ought to be held up as long as she's there. It may be that the way they wired the ESC to go to the TSD, yeah, I know, is not typical, as are so many things with this phone company. And isn't it an interesting one? You know, all independents are not the same. The last one, the Highland Telephone Company, seemed exotic enough, but then we come here to Warwick and it's even more exotic. Now, as I said before, one of the characteristics of most ESCs is that the MFs don't sound normal. Let's do a quick survey of the MFs we've heard on this tape coming through the originating senders here. all completely normal. The MFs, that is. The fact that they prefix a 2 when sending the called number to TSD, and they use a code 11 at the end of the number identification sequence is not normal, but the tones are. Another place where we hear the ESC MFing is via the TSD. What I'm saying is that this very same Stromberg electronic switch is also used when an operator and the TSD system are calling out to the world. And coming in from there, some of the MFs do sound kinda single-tony. And you know, the place where this ESC switch really sounds single-tony is in programs 4 and 5, because most of the time we heard the ESC MFing there, one tone was louder than the other. So it varies, but this is the first ESC I found that has normal-sounding tones when you're hearing it on the ground at a payphone. Well, fortunately, Ben and I made another stop in the Warwick Valley Telephone Company area. We next went to Florida, New York, one of the steps, 914651, and we recorded a lot there. Some of that will be in the next program. At this point, I don't know whether I'm going to have to make it 2 programs because there's a lot of material. How much of it is relevant, I'll see. Florida, New York, a step in the Warwick Valley Telephone Company area is next.